Well, hello everybody. Haven't done an endgame video in a while, so thought this time we could look at some rook versus pawns. This time 2 pawns. Start with the split pawns here, and even here it's a big difference that like how far these are gone. With the pawn all the way here and there, it's a best white can achieve here is a draw. So the king of course is far away. These are coming this way. This is not gonna be a factor in stopping them. So we have to rely on the rook alone. And what can he do? Well, obviously he cannot win either one because the king can always defend them both. So we have to use checks to stop them. And here the wrong check, of course, is this one, because that just advances the black's play. They get forward and block the check. And if we ever move the rook away, this promotes, and then many ways to win, but one simple plan is just to walk the a-pawn through. So the right check as often is from the behind. And then black has some options. He can, for instance, go in front of the pawn here, but the downside of course that is that then his pawn is not going forward. Can also go in front of this pawn here where it can advance, but then like always in these cases we have to attack the pawn that is not defended. So here we can just take the pawn, and since the king blocked the pawn, we're in time to come under here and sack when they promote a draw. And if he goes there, still we do the same move at this, but here black can defend their pawn. But what do we do then? We give that check. And then again, if he goes this way, we attack this guy. If he goes this way, we attack this guy. And if he tries to go and zigzag towards our rook, we give a check. We could also attack this guy, since we are in time to go here if they try to run the... this comes with check, so this moment we are in time to come to the back rank and stop the pawn. But maybe easier to remember is always give the check here. And now, of course, the king cannot leave the c-pawn. He has to keep somewhere defending it, so either way he goes. We can give a check. We can also again, because he went here, can threaten this with check, so it's no longer time to go. Black has no time to promote, and white would get to the back rank. But we can also give the check again, and the king is not gonna go anywhere because either he goes there and we just keep attacking things. And again, this guy now goes to the front of the pawn, which we already saw in the beginning, so doesn't advance the cause in any way. And of course, here we give a check, and wherever he goes, go attack this guy, and he has to come back. And things are not progressing anywhere for Team Black. And yeah, in the beginning, just we attacked this one. We defense, we give a check, and well, king has nowhere to hide and can always threaten to win the other one and sack to the other one, and that's the key to stopping the split pawns this far. But of course we cannot do waste the time here, because then things come, or the pawns are too far, and here is a neat trick black can use to win this. So if we waste the time to try to win this somehow with the white pieces, king b2, check, king c1, and then this is no longer good enough because c2, then this got too close, because we took the pawn from a3 instead of a4. Now we don't have time to swing under the pawn, and black just wins. No good. And of course, if we don't do this, then the pawns just advance anyways. Alright, let's look at another split pawns. This is a famous funny example. Probably not very practical, but I like it always. Like Now the pawns are split by 4 files, but it's white to move. Pawns are coming this way. So what's the threat? Black is threatening to come here. I'm just promoting. So if we try to move the king, they come here. Well, of course we cannot take because the other one wins, and then this is not enough because they just promote, and well, if we take, then the other one promotes, and if we take here, well, the best we can hope for here is that somehow black would not know how to win the queen versus rook, which is not an easy endgame to win, which I'm not gonna demonstrate here because it's not an easy endgame to demonstrate. Alright, so how does white defend here? Well, since there is a lot of squares between them, it always has to swing around here. And then best black can hope for is we keep swinging around here. They come here again, introduce the same threat, and white should always run around here. What does not help is, of course, if you go here, back, check, check. You lose both pawns and a draw. And what here, trying to go around is not gonna work out either, because of course, if you try to go around here, we can take this one with them and pin the other one, so it's not queening, so king can come here, and this is no winning try at all. Next we take there, and well, still a draw. Alright, well, of course, here white should, well, I guess this is still a draw though, right? I guess this would be the blunder, right? Where you actually lose both pawns by check. So there is a way that black could actually lose this, but this is probably very unlikely to happen. Of course, if you do the same endgame with the pawns 1 inch closer, then it does not matter who's to move. If it's black to move, they come here and promote. And again, it's probably the queen versus the rook. And even with the white to move, there's nothing you can do about it. Like if you go here, now the king just comes here and promotes, or any other move, no good. We just come here and promote next. Or of course you can pin it, but does not help at all. It's coming through. So here, split pawns to advanced. Already beat the rook. Well, they need the king's help to actually promote. Alone they are not winning the rook. Unlike, for instance, the famous, well, I don't know how famous it is, but at least I found it somewhat useful in somehow this actually occurs decently often, is that 2 pawns, connected pawns, not split like the previous examples, beat the rook. Unless, of course, the rook can instantly capture the one of the pawns, like it was here. Then, of course, this is not going anywhere. And the kings are irrelevant in this case. But here, the rook cannot stop the pawns. So you can, for instance, try to run with the king, but the pawns just go here. And the problem is that connected pawns support each other very well. Here you don't even get to the rook versus the queen, because it's going to be queen versus the king, which is usually a bad idea. And there is nothing better you can do. We can attack the both of the pawns, but one of them goes forward. And well, if you capture, then you might get to the queen versus the rook. Whoop-de-doo. Which of course should be a win for the queen, if they know what they're doing. Same with the rook to move. Here, of course, the rook still awkwardly placed. Same example with the black to move. So usually in the rule of thumb is to place the rook behind the more advanced pawn. Because if you are behind the more advanced pawn, that cannot move forward, nor the other one, because we just capture it. So that's usually the better place. Going behind the other one is not enough, because then the more advanced can advance, and then you cannot take there because it promotes, or going under the this one, after it has advanced, is too late already because this comes forward and then you have a pawn on the 6th and the 7th and they're gonna just advance and promote one of them. Hopeless case. But here, of course, the rook is awkwardly placed, so it cannot go behind the pawn, but same principle applies. We have to go in front of the more advanced pawn. And here it's about the kings, because of course this is not threatening to take anything. If you are behind, at least then you are always threatening to come here, pick this up, and then come still to stop this guy. But if you are in front of them, you are not threatening to ever capture the pawns. So here it comes relevant where the kings are. This is just enough for the black king is gonna be able to sneak in there here, stop the pawns, and then, well, something. Well, here we can of course take the pawn. If it goes here, rook comes around and I don't know, check or go behind the pawns. We can even take this one because this is not gonna go home. King is just in time. I guess we can take instantly. But yeah, here the king is helping, so pawns are doomed. But of course, even here you cannot spend a tempi. Like you give a random stupid check. And then, oops, realize that this is threatened still. But now the king comes here to give a body check and our king cannot get here to stop the pawns. Still a draw here, but it's a bit harder. Here, for instance, now king c5 loses because now the pawns rolled through. So here you have to actually run the rook around somewhere. For instance, here, still stopping this, and now we are in time to come with the king to still help stop the pawns. White should not push the pawn here, but instead go king f6 or king d6 and keep this guy blocked out of the game. How does black draw? This is like, well, this is one way, for instance. You go under the pawn again, and here, for instance, go behind one of them. And now if this goes here, just keep around here and keep an eye on this pawn. So if this promotes, we take that. And if white tries something like this, well, if it goes here, we of course take it and actually win. But if it tries this one, we just wait. And this is not going forward, of course, because there is a pin. And then we take this one too. Not winning, but here black has to capture. But yeah, this would be actually a mistake. King gets here and then he gets to, if you push the e-pawn, he comes there in the hole and stops those, or this way around. King comes here. And now it's too late. You have been stopped. Pawns are not moving anywhere. King just advances and then eventually you will lose both pawns. So even here, remember to always stop the more advanced pawn. And here it depends, like you can still be in trouble if the king gets there too fast, and the rook is always awkward in front of the pawns because there's always the threat of getting rolled with the pawns. Here, of course, it's not, since we take this one. And let's see one more example. Here is another pawn of pawns on the 6th. So they're going this way. But at least here, white has the king in front of the pawns. But still, it's not so easy how to round up the pawns because, well, waiting moves here won't do anything because black can also just wait around here. Yes, infinite moves here, so keeping the king cut from the pawns is not going to work out. Nor is trying to run the king around here because, well, here black should still wait, but if the king gets too far away here, then, oops, the pawns run through. Bang, bang. There is a queen. White loses, so running around is not an option. But again, where does the rook belong? Well, most of the time it belongs behind the passed pawns. Also, a lot of room for to give a checks and maneuver better. So here, let's say black goes here, king e4. What do we do? Well, here we can give a check, but probably most accurate is just to instantly just try to squeeze the pawns. Now the king cannot keep the pawn defended and stay here. If you push, of course, you end up in this, that the king comes here and, well, eventually you lose the pawns. We come, for instance, here, and now the king cannot keep this defended. So white can just safely capture, and there is no tricks of the promotions and then taking the rook. And the rook's not attacked. Surprise. Well, here, of course, if the king goes here, actually a good trap. It looks like we can capture this safely. But there is this trick here. Oops. No longer pinned. And here, white is not winning because well, of course, this is a draw. But if you don't take it, then the pawn is threatening to promote with check, so, and you cannot stop attack this square. So this is a good trap from team black. White should wait with the rook, or probably this is the even more accurate. King e1 denies this square. Again, either one of these do nothing. Well, we go here and, well, this is not going anywhere. And this is not going anywhere because of, we give a check and then stick the king here and then, I don't know, we win the pawns some way, but they are gone. And here, if black comes here back, tries to hold this setup here, now we can wait. And now this is no longer any kind of a threat because king was denied this square. Can safely capture this. But yeah, good trick here from black is to go here and you sidestep the pin and threaten this, and white rook is awkwardly placed. And the king is awkwardly placed because this comes with check. So best white can do here is to capture or go here and, or even move the king to be able to pin this. But obviously this is the easiest way. But yeah, most of the time rooks belong behind the passed pawn, except when they don't. So just don't automatically do it. But this is a good rule of thumb, but there's a million exceptions, of course, too. But that was a bunch of rook versus few pawns. Well, I guess this was kind of a king also involved. But until next time, we'll see what kind of endgames we come up